This is Earl Purdy, and I'm going to do Course in Miracles lesson 169. And 169 is, I'm going to do for you lesson 169. And 169 is, by grace I live, by grace I am released. By grace I live, and by grace I am released. I'm going to read that to you, and we're going to see if we can get this lesson for today. Here we go. Grace is an aspect of the love of God. Grace is an aspect of the love of God, which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. Do you know that grace is the world's most lofty aspiration? Because grace leads beyond the world entirely. That means that grace is past learning, yet the goal of learning is grace. I love that. I love that. Grace is past learning, yet the goal of learning. For grace cannot come until your mind prepares itself for true acceptance. Grace cannot come. Grace becomes inevitable instantly in those who have prepared a table where grace can be gently laid and willingly received, which is an altar clean and holy for the gift of grace. Don't you realize that grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear? Do you know that by grace alone, the hate and fear are gone by grace alone? Because grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world of fear contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. Don't you realize that grace is not learned? The final step must go beyond all learning. Grace is not the goal this Course in Miracles aspires to attain. Yet we prepare for grace in that an open mind can hear the call to waken. The open mind is not shut tight against God's voice. The open mind has become aware that there are things it doesn't know, and thus the open mind is ready to accept a state completely different from experience with which it is familiarly at home. We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of you and God as one has been already set. But we have also said that your mind determines when that time of oneness with God will be, and has determined it. And yet we urge you to bear witness to the Word of God, to hasten the experience of truth, and speed its advent into every mind that recognizes truth's effects on you. Don't you know oneness is simply the idea God is? And in the Creator's being, the Creator encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but the Creator. We say God is, and then we cease to speak. For in that knowledge, words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source, and like its source itself, the mind merely is. Do you know that we cannot speak nor write or even think of this oneness state at all, really? It comes to every mind when total recognition that that mind's will is God's has been completely given and received completely. It returns the mind into the endless present. That's where the past and future cannot be conceived. This is a mind that is healed, that lies beyond salvation, which is right-mindedness and forgiveness, past all thought of time, forgiveness, and the holy face of Christ. This is a mind beyond salvation, past all thought of time, forgiveness, and the holy face of Christ, your real self. You, the creation of God, has merely disappeared into your Creator, as your Creator has in you. The world of fear and separation has never really been at all. Eternity remains a constant state. This is beyond experience that we can try to hasten. Yet forgiveness, which is correct perception, taught and learned, brings with it the experiences which bear witness that the time that you yourself have determined to abandon all but the truth is now at hand. We do not hasten it, in that what you will offer was concealed from the Creator who teaches what forgiveness, which is correct perception, means. In other words, all learning was already in God's mind, accomplished and complete. God recognized all that time holds and gave it to all minds, that each one might determine from a point where time has ended when that mind is released to revelation and eternity. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done. You but make a journey that is done. You but make a journey that is done. For oneness must be here. Whatever time your mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. We merely take the part assigned long since and fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled by him who wrote salvation's script in his creator's name and in the name of his creator's son, you. Don't you know there is no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand? When revelation of your oneness comes, the revelation of your oneness will be known and fully understood. Now we have work to do. For those in time can speak of things beyond time, and listen to words which explain what is to come is past already. Yet what meaning can the words of truth convey to those who count the hours still and rise and work and go to sleep by the hours still? Suffice it then that you have work to do to play your part. You have work to do. The ending must remain obscure to you. Until your part is done, the ending remains hidden to you. It doesn't matter, for your part is still what all the rest depends on. As you take the role assigned to you, salvation, which is healing, which is right-mindedness, which is forgiveness, comes a little nearer each uncertain heart that doesn't beat as yet in tune with God as you take the role assigned to you. Forgiveness, which is correct perception, true perception, is the central theme that runs throughout salvation, which is healing, holding all its parts in meaningful relationships. The course it runs directed and its outcome sure. And now we ask for grace, which is the final gift salvation can bestow, is grace. Experience that grace provides will end in time, for grace foreshadows heaven, which is perfect joy, yet does not replace the thought of time but for a little while. The interval suffices. It is here that miracles are laid to be returned by you from holy healing instants you received through grace in your experience. To all who see the light that lingers in your face. What is the face of Christ but his who went a moment into timelessness and brought a clear reflection of unity he felt an instant back to bless the world? How could you finally attain this instant of love forever while a part of you remains outside, unknowing, unawakened, and in need of you as witness to the truth? Be grateful to return as you are glad to go an instant and accept the gifts that grace provided you. You carry these gifts of love and peace back to yourself. And revelation stands not far behind. Its coming is ensured. We ask for grace and for experience that comes from grace. We welcome the release grace offers everyone. We do not ask for the unaskable. We do not look beyond what grace can give. For this we can give in the grace that has been given us. Do you realize that our learning goal today does not exceed this prayer? Yet in the world, what could be more than what we ask this day of God, who gives the grace we ask as it was given God? By grace I live, by grace I am released. By grace I give, by grace I will release. By grace I live, by grace I am released. By grace I give, by grace I will release. Let's get that down. By grace I live. Let's see. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. Let's say it. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. By grace you live. By grace you are released. By grace you give. By grace you will release. By grace you live. By grace you are released. By grace you give. By grace you will release. By grace you live. By grace you will release. By grace you live. By grace you are released. By grace you give. By grace you will release. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. Mighty companion, This is Earl Purdy, and I want to invite you to come to my website. Check me out at www.earlpurdy.com. And let peace extend from my mind and heart to yours. And remember, by grace you live. By grace you are released from all kinds of fear. By grace you give. And guess what? By grace you are released.